Phoenix Suns fans are outraged at their new hire and general manager, but is it justified? Let's unpack it on a trending edition of PHNX Suns. I'm Eric Ruby, of course, part of PHNX Suns. If you missed our breaking news podcast, where we dove into this front office move entirely, that's right here on PHNX Sports and in your audio feeds, plus so much more as well. Hit that subscribe button, help us get to 40,000 subscribers. But big news for the Phoenix Suns, that change that Matt Ishbia promised did come, but not in the way that everybody expected, as their new general manager is Brian Gregory. Your first thought might be, who? And that would make a lot of sense, considering Gregory's only been in this Phoenix Suns front office for a short period of time. Before that, he was a college basketball head coach, not one that had a ton of success to his name, and an assistant coach as well, which is where a lot of people's outrage lies, considering he was an assistant coach on the team that Matt Ishbia was on at Michigan State. So not only was this an internal hire, which is not the change that a lot of people were hoping for or expecting after the Suns missed the play-in, but also it seems like, and we don't know for sure, but it seems like Matt Ishbia playing favorites or just choosing somebody based off of where they coached, aka Michigan State. Now, I am of the belief that we need to give Brian Gregory time to see what his actual approach is as the general manager of the Phoenix Suns, and it's unfair to say that he's going to suck or whatever right now. That being said, as a Suns fan myself, I do find it a little concerning that you preach change and you preach all of these things that are going to be different, and then you pick somebody from within the Phoenix Suns organization that you have a close relationship with and that doesn't have any experience as a general manager or really any extended experience in a front office role to become your GM. But it's not just about what I think. It's not just about what Matt Ishbia thinks or what the Suns front office thinks. It's also important what the fans think. So what I want to do is very quickly here, just read some fan reactions. For those of you that are unplugged off the internet, good for you. If you're not on social media, congratulations. I'm a little jealous of you. But B, just to paint a picture as to where this franchise stands with its fans right now, and not that it's necessarily fair, but the type of leash that Brian Gregory is going to be afforded, considering this is his first time being in this role, and he has a lot of pressure on his shoulders. Let's start off with this tweet from somebody named Nobody. I'm not calling them a nobody, but at Nobody Cares 934 says, poor track record of winning in college, very little NBA experience. Sure, deck chairs on the Titanic, and that will not be the first time that pops up. Let's move on to Royal Flush at WEQQCX12, whatever that means, says, LOL, Suns are cooked. He hired his college boy. And that's a tough look for Matt Ishbia and the Phoenix Suns. Listen, Brian Gregory could be the right hire, an internal hire, could be the correct move, but purely from a position of how it looks, this is poor. And I know Matt Ishbia isn't in the business of what everybody else thinks the move looks like. It's in the business of making the best move. But it is tough to preach change and preach culture building, and that whatever was happening inside your organization last year just was not going to be acceptable. To hire somebody internally and then to hire somebody that you have deep connections to outside of just the Suns connection. Moving on from T-Bat at AZTony33 says, massive front office movement coming? ? LOL. Let's promote a college/scouting coach to GM and move guys internally to advisor roles. Of course, saying internally to advisor roles is James Jones being moved to a senior advisor role, the former president of basketball operations and GM of the Phoenix Suns. We could talk more about that another time. Moving on to Jesse Ellsworth at Jesse Ellsworth says, so rearranging chairs on the Titanic. Which this might be the case. Maybe you shouldn't give Brian Gregory the benefit of the doubt, and maybe he's not ready for this position, and this is just a way for Matt Ishbia to manipulate and to gain control over the franchise. I wouldn't say I necessarily believe that, but I could see that line of thinking, and once we see what Brian Gregory can do with this Titanic, which admittingly he's being dealt a very crappy hand, we're not going to know exactly what he's able to do, but he's going to have to do something to get guys like Jesse, like T-Bat, like Royal Flush, like Nobody Cares 934 to be on his side, or at least to just feel good about the future, which is where the tweet from Colt comes in, at the OG Colt, says, I'm losing hope for our franchise's future. This hire was massively important. We talked about it on the show so many times. What had to be done? Well, you had to nail this, and you have to get it right, but you also have to give them grace and leeway to fix the mistakes the previous regime made. But losing hope in your franchise future for a fan base seems to be the theme, and apathy and not caring is not something that Suns fans or that the Suns can afford their fans to feel right now, especially not knowing what's going to happen in the future. We have another tweet from Sketchy at Sketchy72. Says they're just trying to make him look good in public, talking about the fact that he was involved in the drafting of Ryan Dunn and Oso Ighodaro, and that he's a great college basketball mind, and that he's going to help reinvigorate this franchise. Sketchy continues saying, reality is he has very small or a non-existent resume. What a bad move by the Suns. There is something to be said when you're not able to hire a Bob Myers or somebody who's in a front office position already in the NBA. You're taking a big risk. Now, sometimes that risk can pay off like it does when you hire first-time head coaches that don't have NBA coaching experience or coaching experience at all in JJ Redick. You can nail these hires. You can come from an outside role in an outside position and succeed. But you're not going to get the benefit of the doubt, especially when this is not a rebuilding franchise in the sense that you have a lot of leeway, you can make some mistakes and learn on the go. Every single mistake that is made for the Phoenix Suns over the next 2 years could ruin Devin Booker's prime if it's the wrong mistake. That's a lot of pressure to carry if you're Brian Gregory. Continuing with some of the stuff and reaction as far as social media goes, Tyler Garrett Smith at Arena Fanatic says, I don't know what's crazier, Brian Gregory as GM or James Jones keeping a job in the organization. So you have two different schools of thoughts. One person earlier saying that this is a bad move because you're taking somebody who had built a championship team who was already in a prominent role in your front office and you're changing them to senior advisor. And then another person who says keeping James Jones around the organization at all is a terrible move. And the only thing they agree on is that they don't understand this move at GM. Continuing, Mark Giannato at M. Giannato says Brian Gregory won one NCAA tournament game in 8 years at Dayton, then couldn't cut it at Georgia Tech, then couldn't cut it at South Florida, and now he'll be running an NBA front office. That is failing up at its finest. Well done by him. Track record does not play out well for Brian Gregory. That does not mean that I'm personally out. It doesn't mean that I agree with all the things that are being said right now, but I'd be lying if I didn't say that I was concerned. And the final one here comes from a lot of people that you guys follow on Sun social media. Sam Cooper says, Brian Gregory could end up being an excellent GM, but it is weird to talk about how change is coming and then just hire one of your college buddies with no outside search. A new head coach will be the only external change. Is that enough? Ask yourself. Now, to clarify, Gambo did say that there was about 5 candidates, and they may not have all been formally interviewed, that the Suns were considering for this GM spot. Of course, they end up with Brian Gregory. I agree with Sam, though, in the fact that it is weird to preach change, to preach culture shift, to preach how some things just cannot be the same from what it was in the past. And whether Brian Gregory had a very intimate role to play in where the Phoenix Suns ended up or not, you can't really say. But if you're going to give him credit for some of the success that they had when it came to drafting, you don't know what other things he's been doing inside the organization and how you should be confident in him to lead this franchise. But it is just a weird look to hire somebody with such close internal ties to the Phoenix Suns when you talk about change. What do you think? Let me know down in the comments below. Check out our full shows on PHNX Suns, our breaking news podcast, our 3 p.m. show, and so much more right here on PHNX Sports. Help us get to 40,000 subscribers if you're listening on audio. Rate us 5 stars and drop down in the comments. You can leave comments on Spotify now, so make sure you do that. What you think about the Phoenix Suns transitioning James Jones to a senior advisory role and promoting Brian Gregory to their new general manager.